I must have the password.
Oh, well, if you must have it, that's wonderful. I'm glad you have that. You said you have the password.
Yeah, but how do I know you have the password?
Jerry Lewis, the legendary comedian, filmmaker, and philanthropist, was one of Hollywood's most iconic figures. Loved by millions for his unparalleled humor and larger-than-life persona, he was also a man surrounded by mystery, controversies, and family secrets. Despite his towering fame and success, life behind closed doors was far from perfect. Now, years after his passing at the age of 91, a jaw-dropping revelation has emerged, straight from one of the people who knew him best, his own son. In a move no one saw coming, Jerry Lewis's son has broken his silence, and what he's revealed has left the world absolutely stunned. From scandals to untold family drama, the truth about Jerry Lewis is finally coming to light. What could his son possibly have said that has sparked this global frenzy? Stay with us as we dive deep into the shocking, untold story that's rewriting the legacy of one of Hollywood's most complex stars. This is a bombshell you won't want to miss. Anthony Lewis, Jerry Lewis's son, has now spoken up in an emotional speech, revealing a surprising truth about his father. In an interview given just before his father's death, Anthony, the famed comedian's youngest son, discussed the tense connection that existed between him and Jerry Lewis. The public is surprised by the discovery, which confirms long-standing speculations, particularly considering the father's lauded career. But the truth seemed to have been concealed by the quiet that had engulfed their family following Jerry's passing. The truth of their connection, however, is now being revealed by Anthony. The memories of Anthony's troubled connection with his father flooded back as he talked. The information that Anthony divulged was just astonishing. Keep watching to find out the specifics that are making waves. A new light has been shown on Jerry Lewis's life and the hardships his family endured. Speaking publicly for the first time, the son made it plain that his parents' relationship was far from ideal. The fact that Anthony's father, Jerry, disinherited them in his will was one of the most distressing things he revealed. Not only was his absence from the will painful, but so was the rejection he felt from his father. For reasons beyond financial gain, you were not included in the will. The estimated $50 million bequest was disinherited from all 5 of his living sons. Anthony, who is Jerry's son, told correspondent Victoria Rono, "I knew I wasn't going to get anything, but the real sticking point, the dagger in my heart, it felt like a final rejection from his father." For a long time, Anthony and his siblings would feel the anguish of that rejection. The mental anguish of being left out of the will, according to Anthony, was far worse than the material ruin. According to him, the true suffering sprang from the feelings of desertion and the unfinished business that he carried with him forever. Anthony claims that he has learned from his experiences that the emotional pain caused by family issues may persist far longer than any monetary hardship. It's becoming increasingly apparent that monetary compensation will not heal the emotional scars that are now impacting them. It was a stressful situation at home while they were growing up, since their father's emotions were so unpredictable. Anthony recalled how he and his siblings had to tread carefully around their father on sometimes, since they could never tell when he would be angry or happy. The result was a poisonous connection that sapped the family of all feeling of affection. Anthony and his siblings went through a lot of mental turmoil because they were afraid of angering their father or dealing with his unpredictable mood changes. What Anthony said next regarding his father, though, was even more surprising. According to Anthony, his family's affluence was not enough to shield them from the impact of his father's absence. The emotional neglect they endured, not the opulence they had, was what hurt him the most, in his opinion. Anthony's introspections highlight the fact that parental connection is irreplaceable, regardless of one's socioeconomic standing. More important than any temporary relief was the long-term harm that Jerry's absence had inflicted on him. Not only that, though, it would appear that Anthony has a major regret, not being able to tell his father how much he loved him one more time before he passed away, was his biggest regret. The urgency of settling family disputes before they escalate is highlighted by Anthony's desire for tranquility. A profound sadness washed over him since he never got the chance for that last discussion. Their grief at their inability to make amends with their father persisted long after Lewis had gone away. The 20th century American comic Jerry Lewis has passed away. His age was 91. Some of the children were not even invited to Jerry's burial, further illustrating how the division among them had grown since his death. Despite expectations that the burial would bring the family closer together and help them recover, the reality was that it revealed just how fractured the family was. Many were unconvinced by Anthony's disclosure of these shocking familial facts. To them, Jerry Lewis's family exemplified perfection. Many were skeptical of Anthony's claims and wondered whether he was speaking the truth about his family's past. His statement sparked a heated debate. Was Jerry Lewis truly intent on ignoring his children when he made his will? A lot of people were interested in finding out more. You haven't heard anything yet about the most disturbing portion of Anthony's story. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal the stunning truth behind Jerry Lewis's will, and we've got the whole scoop for you. Because of the exclusions and distribution of his wealth, Jerry Lewis's will and its terms have garnered a lot of attention from the public. A large chunk of Jerry's inheritance went to his second wife and adopted daughter, while his children from his previous marriage were disinherited due to a number of contentious decisions he made in his will. Sandy, Lewis's second wife, and their adopted daughter Danielle, who was born 25 years ago, were bequeathed the whole estate by Lewis. After his first marriage to singer Patty Palmer ended, Jerry Lewis went on to have 6 children with his second wife. Many were surprised when he decided not to leave anything to Patty Palmer or any of their 6 children in his will. I intentionally make no provision for my former wife and the children of my former marriage. Lewis's first wife, singer Patty Palmer, had 6 children with him, and all 6 of them were disinherited. His intention to have no financial ties to his previous wife or their children was made crystal apparent by this language. While Jerry's exact motivations for making this choice are unknown, speculation centers on unsolved personal concerns that contributed to the animosity between him and his original family. The plot, however, began to heat up at this point. The will includes Sandy P. Nick, Jerry's second wife, from 1983, which was a stunning turn of events. His Las Vegas mansion and other assets made up a large chunk of his bequest to her. The public's view of Jerry's family was already clouded when his adoptive daughter Danielle was labeled a beneficiary. The children Lewis had biologically were to inherit a smaller portion of his fortune compared to his adoptive daughter and second wife. Although Jerry's precise bequest distribution remained undisclosed, the estimated $50 million worth of his inheritance upon his passing is public knowledge. A considerable chunk of his legacy, which comprised real estate, cash, and assets from his career, was supposed to go to his second wife Sandy and their adopted daughter. Several valuable homes and financial assets were part of Jerry Lewis's inheritance, as described in his testament. His lavish Las Vegas mansion was one of the most prominent bequests he left to Sandy and P. Nick. Lewis also left his second wife and adoptive daughter a plethora of financial assets, including many bank accounts, investments, and salary. They are thought to have received tens of millions of dollars. However, the actual sum is not completely disclosed. To further assure the financial security of Jerry's second wife and daughter, the will includes several of Jerry's assets in California. After Jerry passed away, his estate consisted mostly of these properties and other valuables. His children from a previous marriage to Patty Palmer were the focus of this will. But how did his other relatives feel about its contents? Learning this will undoubtedly pique your curiosity. Public and personal feelings were both affected by Jerry Lewis's will. Being left out of his will caused great pain to his children from his previous marriage. Much of the public's attention was directed towards the differences between Jerry and his first family, as a result of the media's rapid coverage of the will's dispute. Many think Jerry severed links with his first wife and children due to the marital problems and poor relationship he had with them. The contents of the will permanently stained Jerry Lewis's image as a family guy in the eyes of the public. When asked about the specifics of the will, Sandy Panic chose to keep mum. According to the terms of his will, Jerry valued his second marriage and adoptive daughter more than his first. In the years leading up to the auction that would expose the world to some of her father's possessions, his daughter Danielle Lewis spoke with us. Jerry Lewis's will has been the subject of public controversy, and many have pondered the circumstances that may have prompted such a contentious choice. Before he passed away, what was Jerry Lewis's life like? Was it really that intricate, according to his will? Jerry Lewis was a rising star in Hollywood, but before he became famous for his controversial antics, let's take a little tour through his life. Jerry Lewis's life, the real story. Newark, New Jersey is the site of Jerry Lewis's birth in 1926. His upbringing was influenced by modest means, yet his exceptional talent was apparent even at birth. Danny Levitch and Rachel, his parents, were also successful performers. Both of his parents were accomplished musicians. His dad did vaudeville and mom played the piano. Jerry received a profound respect for humor and a passion for music from his parents. They had no idea their son would go on to become a world-renowned comedian, bringing laughter to people all across the globe. Jerry endured a difficult and eventful life before he became renowned, and he worked very hard to achieve his accomplishment. Jerry was profoundly impacted by his parents when he was growing up. An early exposure to the performing arts from both his father and mother set the stage for Jerry to pursue a career in show business. It was from their shared appreciation of music and comedy that Jerry inherited their gift for bringing a smile to people's faces. There were also some enjoyable times throughout Jerry's childhood. From an early age on, his mischievous streak was on full display, whether he was stealing pies or sneaking into kitchens. He had an innate talent for entertaining, and his humorous demeanor shone through at all times. Despite getting himself into trouble on occasion, Jerry's formative years were a whirlwind of activity and mirth, and it was obvious he was destined for greater things. Jerry stood out from the crowd. As he entered puberty, Jerry's antics grew increasingly risky. Even when he wasn't stealing pies, he loved getting into trouble and making a mess of things. Jerry, however, was beginning to rediscover his life's calling: performing. His distinctive brand of comedic experimentation began when he was just 15 years old. He would make silly expressions and act as if he were singing along to the music. The strategy was out of the ordinary, yet effective. He became aware of his talent for entertaining when he saw how he could capture an audience with his body language and enthusiasm. Even if his performances were a bit offbeat, they were unique and memorable. "Laughter is our safety battle," said the delirious, rubber-faced comic and actor Jerry Lewis, and that was only the start of Jerry's meteoric climb to stardom. Even though Jerry's first professional performance bombed, he kept trying. Jerry refused to be discouraged by the failure of his initial performance. While remaining near the stage and honing his art, he took up odd jobs. He viewed setbacks as necessary steps on the road to success rather than roadblocks. Every setback served as a valuable opportunity for growth. He continued to pursue his dreams and his passion for humor unwaveringly. After suffering such a defeat, many would have given up, but Jerry remained resolute. He had faith that if he persisted, he could achieve his goals. When Jerry finally crossed paths with Max Coleman, a comedian who would go on to be a mentor to him, things started to look up. Max noticed something about Jerry that nobody else had. He noticed more than simply a comic potential. He saw a young guy with a funny face. The suggestion Max gave Jerry, which would alter the course of his life, was to make comedy his career. Jerry started to hone his approach under Coleman's tutelage, picking up tips on timing and audience connection. Max encouraged him to hone his craft and discover his voice as he worked with him to build his act. As he received words of encouragement from his mentor, Jerry began to develop the self-assurance necessary to thrive in the cutthroat comedy industry. In Jerry's mind, this was the beginning of a monumental event. Jerry reached new heights in his profession after meeting Max Coleman. Everyone was taken aback by what transpired thereafter. Irving Kay, a comedian who was instrumental in Jerry's growth, took notice of him shortly thereafter. After Jerry's performance at a hotel, Kay decided to take him under his wing since she spotted his unique skills. Jerry made rapid progress under Kay's tutelage. He became more effective. Jerry was able to advance in his work to a whole new level because of the guidance. His fame quickly expanded as he established himself in the entertainment world. After turning his pastime into a full-time profession, Jerry quickly rose to the ranks of America's most famous comedians. The lovely vocalist Dean Martin became Jerry's lifelong comedic sidekick in 1959, the year they met. As you may be aware from seeing Dean Martin's concerts and the Dean Martin Rose, the two hit it off right away. Just sensational, they exclaimed. He's going to be here and Dean Martin's here tonight. One of the most legendary collaborations in show business ensued. Dean's expertise was the ideal match for Jerry's zany spirit and sense of humor. For a long time, they brought joy to audiences as a comedic duo. They were in films, on stage, and even in front of the TV. There was no denying the intensity of their bond, and their relationship took off immediately. Jerry reached a turning point when he met Dean. He had finally discovered the one who could channel his boundless enthusiasm into something greater than himself. The dynamic duo of Jerry and Dean was groundbreaking in its ability to redefine the very definition of humor. They pioneered a new genre by fusing music and comedy. Their one-of-a-kind performing style enthralled onlookers. Dean's musical abilities harmonized beautifully with Jerry's physical humor. Their performances were more than simply jokes. They were narratives in and of themselves. Jerry Lewis, who was active for 7 decades, is remembered by many as one of the finest film comedians of all time. His death on Sunday made him one of the Hollywood elite who, over time, started to take charge of his own films in every way, writing, producing, and directing. Their performance was thrilling and unlike anything that had gone before. Jerry and Dean clearly had it made, and their partnership would revolutionize the entertainment industry. It wasn't a fluke that Jerry became famous. A lot of sweat and advice from people like Max Coleman and Irving Kay went into making it happen. While this is the only period of his life that many are familiar with, Jerry had early professional success, but then something happened, a dramatic shift in his career trajectory. Gaining national fame, Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin captivated audiences nationwide. They become one of Hollywood's most beloved comedic duos via their performances and film roles. However, their friendship started to crumble behind the scenes as the strain to maintain their rising stardom became too much. They began to have relationship issues due to the frequent work and disagreements. Things were far from easy for Jerry and Dean, despite their success. Their ability to collaborate as a team deteriorated as they began to spend less time together. Their collaboration could no longer be sustained as time went on. After Jerry and Dean had worked together for a while, they broke up in 1956. Fans were startled by the breakup, and Jerry felt a deep sense of loss as a result. However, it also signaled the beginning of a fresh phase in his life, one that would be accompanied with obstacles and possibilities. After that, Jerry had to face the unimaginable, the breakup of his union with Dean. After losing his lifelong companion, he felt completely lost, as the couple had meant everything to him. In the entertainment sector, Jerry had a hard time finding his footing. He was lonely and worried about the future. It was difficult for him to break out of the shadow cast by Dean Martin's popularity when he began performing alone. The comparisons to his ex-partner persisted regardless of his actions. To achieve his goals, Jerry understood he had to stop being Dean's little brother and start speaking his own mind. Despite the difficulty of the trek, Jerry remained resolute. When Judy Garland was sick and couldn't perform, Jerry was offered the opportunity to fill in. This was Jerry's big break. Jerry filled her position. Jerry took the chance and gave a performance that the crowd loved, even if it was hazardous. This was a watershed moment in his solo career, as his performances won them over. Following this breakthrough, Jerry began to devote more time and energy to music, a field he had previously avoided. He discovered a new way to connect with audiences through his musical performances. With his unique blend of musical talent and comedic timing, Jerry was able to carve out a niche for himself in the solo music industry. The record "Rockabye Your Baby" by Jerry was one of his biggest solo triumphs, reaching #1 on the charts. The song "Rock Your Baby with Dixie" is still a hit. This proved he could be successful on his own, apart from his comic duo with Dean, which was a huge accomplishment. With the start of his successful music career, Jerry's fame skyrocketed. His shows were in great demand, and he swiftly rose to fame in Sin City and became a TV regular. Even though Jerry was quite successful in his career, his home life was chaotic. He frequently let his comedic struggles reveal his underlying struggles and emotional troubles. Jerry was really struggling with his own suffering underneath all the jokes and laughter. But what was it that was hurting him so badly? Eventually, it was said that his family was the root of all his troubles. In any case, was this factual? Once the doors were closed, what happened? Jerry Lewis's family disputes are worth investigating more. It was more difficult for Jerry Lewis to manage his personal life as his career took off. His personal life was in shambles, in contrast to his vivacious and joyful performance. His loved ones started to feel the pinch as his fame grew. Work consumed Jerry to the point that he had trouble maintaining strong relationships with his family. In Jerry's private life, his strained connection with his children was a major source of stress. He neglected his family in favor of his profession when it took off. He started to feel distant and uncared for by his children, particularly those from his previous marriage. It seemed like Jerry was never home since he was always on the go for business. His kids felt abandoned as he drifted more and further away from them. The hurt he inflicted his children by emotionally ignoring them would remain unhealed, regardless of Jerry's achievements. Not only that, though, once Jerry tied the knot for a second time, things only became worse. Tensions escalated between Jerry and his children as a result of a shift in his family's circumstances. Jerry became distracted by his new family, and his first children's closeness with him diminished. Despite his devoted fan base and prosperous profession, Jerry frequently had intense feelings of isolation. In the midst of all the fame and joy, he was battling his emotions. Losing Jerry's father was one of the most devastating experiences of his life. With his father's passing, Jerry also lost the one person who had been there for him through thick and thin. With the death of his youngest son, Joseph, he endured yet another devastating tragedy. Sadly, out of Jerry's 7 children with his first wife, Patty, only Joseph lived to adulthood. Jerry was left bewildered by this. Without his father's support, Jerry felt increasingly alone as his career progressed. The bond that Jerry had with his kids began to deteriorate. After Jerry's death in 2017, his children were left to handle the burden of their father's fractured relationships. The fact that they were denied entry to his burial only served to heighten their suffering. Their years of frustration were rekindled by this exclusion. The exclusion hurt Anthony, his son, more than everyone else. This painful recollection was what he eventually revealed to the public. The long simmering emotional wounds were laid bare by Anthony. To what extent do you agree with Anthony Lewis's disclosures on his connection to Jerry Lewis? In your opinion, was Jerry Lewis an effective parent? Are you convinced by Anthony's account? Feel free to provide your opinions in the space provided. It would mean a lot if you could subscribe and like our channel. Additionally, you should not miss the following video. Click on it.